Hey, welcome back. I'm joined today by Tim again.
Hello.
And this time I'm making him play teeny tiny fantasy toy soldiers as we're going to play Kings of War using 10mm scale minis.
Cannot wait.
The ones that I sell on my website.
Indeed.
This is good because this is an old school vibe to this game because it's Kings of War using Warhammer-ish inspired minis.
Yeah. And my first Warhammer army was the Undead.
I kind of let him have the vampires.
I kind of had to, really.
And I'm taking on the chaotic forces. So we'll be using Kings of War rules, so Undead have their own, and I'll be using the Northern Alliance rules for my units and stats. So let's get to the game. Right, this is our setup for the push mission. So our units are carrying these little counters. These are the loot counters. So I've given mine to my light infantry units, my heavy warrior units, and another light infantry unit here. Tim has been a little sneakier over here.
I have skeletons, whites, and also I feel a coach carrying some loot. You've got to pile your loot up on a coach, so I felt that was the right thing to do.
Yes, we could use the Gorblight rules for this thing.
Yeah.
It's the closest fit that we could have. We set the terrain up in an old abandoned village because if you lived between the Undead and the Chaos Forces, you probably wouldn't want to stay there for very long.
No.
So we're going to be moving on. The objective is to get the loot counters into your opponent's half, because they're worth more victory points if you hold them at the end of the game. But obviously it does risk you losing them, so it's quite a to and fro, and I'm sure we'll figure this out as we go along. So let's get on with turn one. Right, so cagey turn one out the way. Some, so we say sensible moves from you, Tim?
Some interesting ones, I think.
We've got these werewolves pushing up your flank.
Yeah.
You can't march many of your units, can you? Because you're undead.
So I've had to, I thought, you know what, let's just slowly advance forward, up the middle, just as, as one does, and we'll just try and see what happens. Unfortunately, there does seem to be a heavy presence of armoured stuff over on your left flank and my right flank, so...
Yeah, you've got these are I'm worried about because these are the Soul Reaver Cavalry, aka Vampire Knights over here. And yeah, these guys are very squidgy. But I've got all my heavy stuff in the middle here, where I've pushed up. Here, I've tried to shield the loot carrying unit with some ogres because they will probably just run through them. And I'm going to see if Tim takes the bait over here with my Tundra Wolves, the Hellhounds, versus your Werewolves, who are actually quite nasty. These are just wolf models, but the Werewolves themselves have a pretty unpleasant stat block. But then these are also wolves the size of a horse, so go figure on that one. So we're going to move into turn two, where the proper action starts, and then we'll start seeing some casualties, I'm expecting.
So yeah, just essentially, just moving up, advancing forward. Rich did throw some bait out over on my left flank with some hounds, so I couldn't resist.
You had to take it.
Exactly, so they've gone forward. I was hoping to move up my wraiths a little bit more with some surge from the Necromancer. Alas, that did not go ahead.
That 1 centimetre wasn't
1
really
centimetre
much
on 6 dice was not great. But yeah, we'll see. I've got some just implacable stuff, what I'm hoping is implacable, just here, and we're just going to move forward and see how it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are going to take forever to get through, being a horde of zombies, but I'm more concerned about your flanking cavalry, but we'll
see how that goes.
Okay, it's kicking off now. On this flank, the horsemen rode down the swarm of bats, which is not really a huge surprise. The Chaos Knights fluffed it against the coach. Did 7 points of damage, but couldn't rout it. It was a terrible roll of ones from me.
There was.
And then over here on this flank, the trolls hit hard, but it turns out it's very difficult to hurt a werewolf. So I inflicted a single point of damage, and they've held. It was a sneaky move because these hounds disengaged and then made the advance move to turn and move across to let the trolls get in there, but then they didn't really do much. So we'll see if those werewolves can make a bit of a mess on this side. So I think it's going okay here for me. Here we shall see. Still really worried about these two on the flank. Should we start over here, Tim? I feel better about this side.
So, yeah, the wolves came in and did a little bit. They fluffed it, actually, a little bit, I think is the right way. But
yeah.
The race, however, came in and completely annihilated your wolves, I believe, your hounds.
Yeah.
And were then, because they're spectral, were unaffected by the trees. And so we're able to turn around. It
was pretty good, actually.
For ready to face a charge there. The Knights have essentially bounced.
Yeah, they
Not done much.
bounced pretty well.
Zombies. Actually, I feel the zombies did very well.
I'll take 4 points of damage against that heavily beefy unit. Yeah.
Over here, it's a bit of a mess. Some very bad rolling over here meant that the knights did not do as well as I did not do as well as against your knights as I had hoped.
They chinned a lot of damage.
They did.
There. And your little cloak of death thing was good though. That's responsible for 50% of that damage.
That's very true.
And this guy got hit as well. However,
but over here, the chariots that were there just got annihilated by a unit of revenants and revenant cavalry, as one would.
These guys in the flank, these guys in the front. It's whites all up in here and everything's dead.
And there's a vampire who's just happily taking on some horsemen.
Yep. So I think I'm in a bit of bother in terms of the amount of stuff on this flank versus what I've got. But here I have a little bit more faith that I can maybe break through and start to cause some havoc. So let's see how that goes.
This seems like the perfect opportunity to interject with a promotion. Say that I sell this set and all of these miniatures and terrain individually and in starter sets and army packs on my website. A link which will be down in the description below. Let's take a little look at what's there. So this gives you an idea of the army sizes that are available in the game. This is 2 starter set armies versus each other, and this is what the terrain pack would look like with the 7 buildings, the hill, and 8 tree armatures. And also I do an option available with a mat that's scaled for Kings of War in centimetres. And as you can see, you get a whole range of armies. You wouldn't need all of them to play Kings of War, as you'll see from the game that we're playing right now, but they give you plenty of options to vary your list up between games. And back to the game. Turn 3 for me, and where do we even start? This is an ongoing slogfest that probably will never end because the trolls regenerate, hence they got a wound back. Didn't deal much damage, and then these guys have life leech, so they'll heal themselves next turn, so we can look forward to that for another 3 turns. These guys charged through the forest, which was their undoing against trying to battle these wraiths, but it was going to happen either way. These trolls absolutely fluffed it, as you can see.
Nothing.
Not a damage marker in sight. In the middle here, we had the warriors put 11 points of damage on these zombies, and the character added another one. But their route value of 22 as a horde means they're not going anywhere. The knights managed to break the coach and move forward a centimetre. So I feel a little bit more secure about what's happening here. This is still very messy. The Dragon Ogres charged up the hill and took out the Grave Guard.
Obi-Wan Kenobi was incorrect.
Exactly, Tim. You even quoted that earlier on. And over here we have not much else going. I got this guy in combat just to kind of speed bump these guys a little bit because they're going to get him anyway. And he put a point of damage on with a lightning bolt, which was helpful. So yeah, this flank's still looking a bit dicey. The middle's locked up. And Tim's now starting to pressure over here. Those wraiths are going to eat their way through that unit. It's just a matter of how long it takes. I have, however, picked up 1, 2 of Tim's loot tokens.
Yeah.
So he's going to need to snatch them back or take some of his own from here, here, or here. We interrupt the turn with news that these vampires have recharged this unit of riders. And how many attacks do you have, Tim?
20 normally, but I believe it's triple.
I believe it's tripled to 60.
Fetch the dice bucket, Rich.
I will get the dice bucket. Well, who's not here anymore, Tim?
So we have some cavalry who's not here.
How many wounds?
There was I think it was 36 out of a potential 60.
Yeah.
From a rear charge from the vampires.
One showed up on your route test, and I was like, ooh, and the second dice wasn't a 1.
Yeah, and then you forced me to re-roll it.
There's some very inspiring around here, which you'll notice is now gone.
Yeah.
And they were just in range. It was another 1 and a 4.
Yeah.
They're very crushed and mangled, and the Vampire Lord got rid of my inspiring, however.
Yeah. With 28 attacks singularly.
Wasn't it? Yeah, because you were flank charge and he's duelist.
Yes.
So
that's quite a. It was 28 attacks was quite unpleasant for him.
Yep.
Over here, unfortunately, the zombies are now zombies and are just flailing mindlessly.
Yep.
I did 5 wounds over to the cavalry, and they are actually
they're wavered, so they can only hold. So I can't do anything with them other than stand their ground.
I did a little bit of damage over there, and then a little bit of damage over there. So This is just two people punching each other backwards and forwards with wet fish.
You got some health back. I might regenerate a few wounds. I think at some point you'll get there.
Potentially.
Because I've got a lot more damage on me than you have now, but it could take a little while. But it is now my turn 4, and I've really got to do something about this side of the battlefield because it's turning into an absolute mess. So turn 4 for me was a mixed bag. These guys did get the exact number they needed to smash those guys out of the way, but I couldn't quite advance clear of a charge from these guys. Over here, the butchery of the zombies has come to an end. They bounced off the skeletons, despite me twice pointing out to Tim how phalanx works, where spears are really, really valuable against cavalry in this game. I then charged my cavalry into the spears as opposed to the flank of the zombies. I mean, they did the job, but now these guys are floundering against the skeletons. Over here, not much action from me, a bit of damage applied, a little bit of healing here. But over here, I managed to get some wounds back and then, with a lucky route roll, get rid of the werewolves. So now these trolls can start doing some work on this flank. So we've got 2 more turns to get to turn 6, at which point we will roll to see if we carry on. And I've got a few of these loot tokens now, so it's over to you, Tim, to seize them back.
Yeah.
I think this one's probably going to be yours.
I think so.
Okay, turn 5. We're in the home stretch, because we like sports analogies on this channel. What do we have, Tim? It's a bit of a meh over here, right?
Bit of a meh. I didn't roll quite as well. I was hoping I could. I didn't think I would, but I was hoping I could rout these guys, turn to face the trolls, so wouldn't get the flank charge I'm going to be receiving. Same over here. I was hoping I could take these guys out. That, alas, didn't happen. I have a suspicion of getting a flank charge here next turn.
It's going to get messy, seeing as I was stupid enough to charge these guys in.
Vampire did some stuff. He healed himself up, that's the important thing. And over here, stuff died.
I mean, didn't it just, yeah. Also meant you got another loot counter back.
Yeah, so now I'm on 2.
So you're on 2 that are moving into my table half, so they're worth more points. I do have more counters than you, but I've only got 1 in your table half at the moment, so I need to rectify that because they become worth more. But yeah, we're going down to the wire now as I start my turn 5.
Well, it started very well over here with this unit fighting back against the vampire, doing 6 wounds. And they're rolling a 10 to rout him, killing him off. But then Tim has learned how to play this game and reminds me that he has inspiring. So actually, he isn't dead at all. He's just standing there like a boss. And I've pushed my Chaos Lord in front to attempt to speed bump these units a little bit to buy myself some time. I know he could get murdered by the Vampire Lord, but that's a risk I'm willing to take on his behalf. These guys bumped out of combat and turned to get a little bit more action going on. And these guys are going to push up into Tim's deployment zone to get more value from their token. Here, the trolls did some pretty good healing and put some hurt on the skeleton knights, but not enough. And the wraiths finally bit it. We had a good round of hits and wounds from these guys. A hindered charge into the flank from the trolls, because the tree is actually a little bit further across. Wasn't enough to stop them from smashing down enough ghosts to make them flee for good. And that secures this side for me. So it's a very swings and roundabouts now, isn't it, Tim? Because this is looking good for me. Here is looking a bit dicey, and it's always going to come down, I think, to whether we get that 7th turn or not. I think that'll be a real critical, critical point. Right, Tim, your turn 5.
So yeah,
what do we do?
Managed to deal with the ogres that were over here, thankfully, and turn round. So we'll see what's going to happen. Just so I know I'm not going to be flanked charged now from over here. My necromancer is just running around, trying to stay alive. And then over here, the vampires went into the Lord, the champion, run him down like the dog that he was. And then stopped short of running into the unit of marauders. Not that it was needed, because the vampire himself just went in and butchered them, like the vampire dude that he is.
Yes. A bit problematic there, because I've dropped my loot token, because he couldn't pick it up.
And then my skeletons are moving forward over here, just so they are firmly in your table half now.
Yes, definitely. When we look from above, they're well in my half the board. So yeah, taking a bit of a snapshot here. You've got 2. Could pick this one up.
I've got 1, 2, 3. It's going to be pretty close as to who's in whose deployment zone into the game, I think.
I think so.
Incredibly brief turn from me as I swiveled the Chaos Warrior unit so that they can hold the loot token in Tim's half. The Knights just reposition themselves ever so slightly. They can't go far because they're carrying a token. They want to kind of cover this one here. On this flank, however, the Marauders legged it past the combat zone to get into the deployment zone with the token. The Trolls charged through the woods as a hindered charge into the Knights. And I rolled an exact 10 to break them on their nerve roll and get them out of the way. So it's really turning now. And Tim's going to be into his last potential turn, depending if he goes to this full 7 turns. And it's all for the play still. We're rattling through these end turns now. They've just securely moved into my half, holding those 2 tokens of 2 points each value. They have got a token under there somewhere, Tim, right?
Yes, they have got one right there.
Sneaky move from the vampire here.
Sneaky move from the vampire moving forward. He is mighty and as such cannot be ignored. You cannot ignore this vampire. So he's done it in such a way, set up in such a way that if he is charged, and he probably will, well, there is a potential that he's going to be charged. If he is charged, or if these guys want to charge, they have to charge him. They cannot ignore him and get to the vampire cavalry, which then hopefully will then leave either him alive or the vampire cavalry all ready and set up for a counter charge should a turn 7 appear.
Very smart. I thought it was lame to play for the draw by backing all of my units up. So these guys have run off with their loot token. Excellent. They've taken a step back with their loot tokens. They have options, but also get the double points for having it in Tim's half. This unit flank charged the vampire, not the front charge that Tim was expecting here. Have killed him, burst through with a 6-inch charge, and these trolls are moving to shut down the Knights. However, it is possibly the end of the game. So the player who went second, which is myself, will roll a dice. On a 4-up, we get another turn, and maybe I can try and snatch this loot counter off Tim. Ooh! Tim!
One more turn to go.
You get to go first, though.
I do.
18 points of damage on these Knights, and I said to Tim, you know what happens now, mate? I don't need to look up the stats. It's Snake Eyes or bust. How are we feeling?
Disappointed in myself.
Disappointed in yourself? I mean, I've overcharged my plasma gun with in 40k enough times to know that even with a reroll, that's a 1 in 36 chance. But yeah, so the Huskarls hold. And let's see if I don't batter you down, Tim, you actually do still win because you hold them in there. Or you thought you had that. Right, so I've piled 11 damage onto these vampire knights in a combination of the trolls and the Huskarls. It's Tim won't tell me what I need to roll in order to rout them, so I'm just going to get on with it and we'll see what it is. This is the last roll of the game. Doing it live on camera. It's a 21, Tim. Is that enough?
I think that is. You needed a 6.
Or that was a dicey play though, because they take that and they have 2 in my own deployment zone worth 1 each. This is worth 2 each and 2 each for a grand total of 6. And Tim has a total of 4 by having 2 in my deployment zone. So it is a victory to Chaos, but at what costs? Because this unit is basically shredded to pieces. And there's not a lot left. We've got quite a lot of casualties on both sides, including all the characters, except for this one guy, sneaking around, backstabbing Chaos Warriors. Right, so how do you think that went, Tim? Good game?
It was a very enjoyable game. My first time playing it. It's a great system, fantastic. The models are fantastic and everything. Down to the wire, very much down to the wire, like that. You gaining the extra turn really helped massively. The double 1 at the very end really for myself completely just. If I had that would have been great, but never mind.
Hey, I gambled on
win,
not having the draw, and could have gone completely the other way.
Sometimes a gamble wins.
Exactly. Brings back memories of fantasy of old without melting your brain.
Yes, not without melting my brain too much. It's been good.
It's been good fun.
It's been enjoyable.
So stick around, guys. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.
See you later.